from a lesson administered by Sir Eddie Fairlane, High Knight of the Rookery, to his squire, Johann Frederick Johann Martinel IV. Oh yeah, that guy? That's Wayne. He runs the auto body shop downstairs. Great guy. Perfect neighbor for folks like us. He's got absolutely no imagination whatever. He could drop an eighth of shrooms and never even get a whisper out of your fey mane. Or Blue over here could eat the tires off his Impala right in front of him and he'd still blame the kids from Worcester Tech. That happened one time. Don't tell nobody. Now, the first thing you got to know about working with dragons is that they're just as real as you and me. Just not to everybody all the time. So we got to treat them with all the respect and caution that you show to any massive fire-breathing animal that could eat your entire head in one swallow. But also we got to remember that the other folks won't see them and won't stop for them. They won't run the other way and vice versa. These guys aren't always tuned into the Tellurian, so they'll just walk in front of a car or a train or wander through the farmer's market, knocking over all the tents, but leaving the vendors untouched. Now, I know we're all used to coping with this kind of thing on like a personal level, but when it comes to dragon handling, you really gotta factor in the scale. It's a whole different ballgame. We'll get into all the metaphysics in a minute, but there's just one more logistical thing you need to be clear on, because it's going to come up a lot. The blue key gets you into the auto body shop. The red key is for the Grand Southern Rookery, the finest rookery in all of Worcester. And the key with the Tasmanian devil on it is for the toilet.
In the decades and centuries since its great tragedy, the city of Salem, Massachusetts has become a sanctuary for the strange, the unusual, and yes, the supernatural. Werewolves, vampires, fairies, mages, and other more esoteric things now walk the streets in relative safety. And when the mortal population gets too curious, they do what any community would do. They form a committee. Welcome to The Chimera, a role-playing adventure podcast. Our campaign this season is called Gallows Hill, and it takes place in our version of the World of Darkness, the setting that encompasses Vampire the Masquerade and all its sibling products. I'm Vin LeBate, and I play 8-Ball, a vampire with mental health issues and an assortment of fake IDs. And joining me this season are...
I'm Braden Lamb, and I play Mew, a mummy cat who's into urban planning and sacred geometry.
I'm Jeffrey Bard, and I play Jack Foxglove, a werewolf shaman who coaches the Salem High School football team, the Salem High Witches.
I'm Ethan Bremner, and I play Mother McCree, an immortal Irish witch and American Civil War veteran.
I'm Kacey Smith, and I play Truly Reynard, an animalistic fairy running from her past, sometimes literally.
And I'm Kelly Weissman Asbruce Jackson, the storyteller.
Now, let's get started.
And so we return to our merry band of erstwhile secret monster bureaucrats. So,
Who you calling Mary?
where we left off, I believe, was that you were trying to meet with as many of these diplomatic emissaries from the various other regional powers, pretty much all in New England or points adjacent, that have some existing relationship with or might need or want a relationship with Veiled Salem. And there's a bunch of existing relationships to be navigated. The relationship to Guamix Band and the Black Bear Brotherhood and the Loyal Confraternity of Isles and Shores. And those are all Baratha. Those are all werefolk groupings. And that is all happening at the next moot, the next big meeting, convention, religious gathering of the Stranded Stone Society. So we'll sort of bracket those and say those are all over in one category, but there's one more grouping left that will just send a normal representative to come have a normal meeting, not under specific Aratha cultural guidelines, and that's the Palatinate of Wyrms. The Palatinate of Wyrms is a fairy-dominated governmental body that has control over roughly the region of Greater Worcester, which is in the east central area of Massachusetts. And they will, like I said, just send us kind of a relatively normal diplomatic presence. So is there anything you want to do before meeting with their emissary or in preparation for this, or make any plans about that before we just cut to the conversation itself?
I think probably we might just give Truly a minute to let us know if there's anything we should expect from this kind of situation.
Kelly, is there?
Well, so, let's conversate, right? Truly has spent a decent amount of time in Salem and had an interesting amount of travel before that.
Right.
What do you feel like she has spent any time in the other kind of neighboring areas at all? Would she have a reason to travel about? Would she have a reason to know much about these things?
She might have gone. I mean, I guess if she was aware of other areas that were fairy focused, that weren't too far, she may have traveled there just to kind of get the feel of them, because, she knows that they're kind of neighbors, and it's probably good to know your neighbors, or at least know what to worry about in regards to them. I don't think she would have done any deep dives into their area, or deep investigations into the secrets of their government or anything like that. But I think she might have some passing familiarity with the setup and the people.
Then I think she probably has at least a little bit of experience with the Palatinate of Wyrms then. And I think the main takeaways are, while Salem is a very emphatically mixed administration, right, with a lot of different groups represented, and the different aesthetics and kind of mystical thumbprints of the various sorts of monster types are all mixed together. It's not a boiling pot because people don't get reduced down, but like a salad or a buffet, perhaps, in Salem, where everything's kind of jumbled together and there's opportunities for everything to touch on the plate. In the Palatinate of Wyrms, in the Worcester area, you're looking at a really strong dominance of the Fae aesthetic very specifically. So if you're in the local Umbra, you're not seeing a mixture of kind of the ghostly feel and the spirit feel. And no, it's overwhelmingly dream, and very specifically dream in the sense of a fantasy novel or a fairy tale. It's a very strong chivalric, pseudo-medieval, emphasis on the pseudo, right? But pseudo-medieval vibe to the whole deal. A lot of knights and courtly etiquette, and generally, not really based on any particular time period in real human history exactly, but like the cartoon version of that, or that viewed through a half remembered prism, right? Yeah, I think that's probably a decent synopsis of what she would know about it.
It's kind of like fairies do a Ren fair.
Yes, very much so. Anything else you want to establish before we do the meeting?
Who are we expecting to meet?
So, I think that's a great cut to meeting them.
Okay.
As we've established, All Hallows Hall is out in this sort of built-up island in the middle of the water between Salem and Marblehead. And it's got a tall profile, right? It's a very, very tall building, has this sort of spire on it. And your guest arrives, I think it's fair to say, unlike in the previous couple of cases, not via the Tellurian, not via the regular physical world, but arrives via the Umbra, via the Dream in this case. And so if anybody happened, I don't know if anybody's going to be waiting out to receive them, but if they did, they would see a dragon flying out of the west. This dragon it's kind of a little bit of a hybrid between the Eastern and the Western aesthetics for a dragon. It has wings, big, slightly bat-like wings or pterodactyl-like wings, and so in that sense, it's pretty distinct from your average East Asian dragon. But it has a very serpentine feel to it. Right? It has a very, very, very long neck and a very long tail and a very slender body. So it also has the four, there's 2 forepaws and two rear. So it's got all the limbs and design that you would associate with a Western European style dragon. But the slender, kind of sinewy, snake-like quality of an Eastern style dragon is also very much present. Its scales are predominantly a light green with some gold and silver mixed in. It's quite beautiful. It has 2 short horns. They're just slightly spiky. They're not like curled or anything. Very long, pronounced snout, beak kind of thing, ending in this long lizard mouth. It comes to rest atop Al Hollow's hall, and its rider climbs down to enter the building and take their meeting. The rider of this dragon is a woman named Dame Ecorine Shadowtail. She is clad in something like plate mail, not exactly a full coverage, but mostly just a breastplate and some shoulder and thigh guards. But, again, not really based on any real world model of armor, but definitely the dream of something that a knight might wear. She has a helmet with a visor that is up, and she is the sort of fae that looks like a only very, very slightly anthropomorphized animal, just on a human scale for height and weight. So she is basically a squirrel with, just slightly adjusted. So like her arms are a little bit longer. Her hands are just a little bit more human-like so she can fully manipulate tools. But otherwise, it's like a squirrel is walking around on hind legs, just doing stuff, being people, wearing a suit of armor and carrying a very fancy-looking sword. Is anyone there to greet?
I think Truly would be.
Do we have to be monitoring the Umbra for that to be?
I think you've set some kind of an expectation about when this person would arrive, so you would know. I mean, it's not meant to be surprising. Okay. There's also probably some sort of protective charm on the building, so that if a giant creature of the Umbra comes and rests on the roof, you get some kind of notice in the mayor's office.
Right.
But like, at what point does she, if one is not looking at or capable of looking at the Umbra, at what point does she become visible, I guess?
Probably when she enters the building.
Okay. 8-Ball is not, since we haven't been greeting people, 8-Ball is not currently greeting people. She's probably in the office getting things set up.
Okay. Then Truly, go ahead.
I was just going to say, Mother McCree is not the type to greet people, period. So she's actually just sitting in the entryway of the building, stock still, in sniper mode, just be like waiting for people, observing people, that sort of thing.
Okay. And Jeff?
Let's see. If Truly's gonna go meet our friend, then I think that Coach will just follow her out.
Okay, so he's also there.
Yeah.
All right. So both of you see what I just described, right? The dragon flying out of the west and coming to perch atop the building, and the rider with her dark bushy tail climbs down off of the creature and sort of pets it on its side and reassures it with some murmurings and flips up the visor on her helmet and says, "I come in the name of the Palatinate. Thank you for greeting me."
Dame Shadowtail, welcome. We're glad that you could join us. I am Truly Raynard. This is Jack Foxglove. We are two of the current mayoral council. Is your steed in need of food or drink before we go in?
She pulls off the gauntlet on her right paw and reaches out to shake hands. She goes for kind of that forearm shake, right?
Yeah.
With each of you, and says that would be most appreciated. He was fed before we left, but just 3 or 4 pigs or 2 cows or an ox, that'll be fine.
Okay. How does he feel about hamburgers? It's like a cow, but in round slices.
She looks up at him and pats him on the side and says, he's not that picky. He'll make do.
Great. Perfect. We'll put an order in over at the cafe.
Yes. So she, like I said, she shakes both of your forearms and definitely looks both of you up and down and sort of nods and smiles. And there's like a little bit of a twinkle in her eye each time, separately. She's like, please, both of you, lead the way. I am most glad to be in your company.
Jack looks at Truly, makes a couple of different really wide eyebrow things. Each eye goes up and then goes up the other way, and then is just looking for Truly to let him know what to do.
Truly says, Jack, why don't you show our honored guest into the office? I'm just gonna get the hamburger sorted. And she takes out her cell phone.
Okay. You sure you don't want me to get the burgers?
I think I got it covered.
Okay. Right this way, dame. And he tries to put on adjust himself a little bit, trying to figure out how to walk, and he's thinking about it way too hard.
Mm-hmm.
And then sort of goes towards the mayor office. And I guess he tries to make awkward small talk with her. So how was the flight in? Smooth?
So just a second to say that she lets him initially lead the way.
Okay.
Right. Okay. All right. So initially she follows behind. Eventually she does in fact catch up to walk alongside him because they're going to be having a conversation. It's weird to walk by. But she lets him, point the way. She follows him enough steps behind that she can very transparently to Truly, because Truly is still back with her, admire his ass.
Right.
and she turns to Truly and sort of is like, yeah, right?
Truly
see this every day, huh?
Truly definitely gives a couple a nod of understanding. Yeah, it's a nice view.
As soon as they enter the building itself and move and walk a little forward while she's presumably checking out Jack, Mother will jump down behind them and follow them into the office.
When Mother McCree jumps down behind them both, right? The helmet on Dame Eckereen's head visibly moves up ever so slightly. The effect of her ears perking up inside the helmet. And she whirls around with her hand on the hilt of her sword. What was that?
Jack spins around too, ready to pounce.
Mother McCree is in full old lady mode. Has her walking stick as a walking stick, and is just following them nothing.
Dame Eckereen sort of completely changes her stance when she sees who it is behind her, and moves with up to now she's had a very martial, although friendly bearing. And here she moves much more fluidly than you expect for someone wearing armor, and much more gently. And she goes right up alongside Mother McCree and sort of puts her arm kind of under hers, like she's Madam, I do not know if you are lost, but let us make sure that we can find you to a nice, easy place to rest your old bones.
Ah, yes, a nice, easy place to rest my own bones. There's not one anywhere near here. Trust me, I know.
That's our friend Mother McCree.
Friends are we now?
Well, okay, not friends, but she's part of the council of mayors, and she's going the same way we are.
Oh, I see. The dame sort of steps back Again, gently, gingerly. That's wonderful that you're part of the council, too. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am.
You don't have to treat her like that. She's a tough old broad.
Yeah, between gritted teeth, she'll just say, "Charmed, I'm sure."
Want to play an old lady? Sometimes you're going to get treated like an old lady. I don't know. Okay, so the group reconvenes in the office of the mayor, where Mew and 8-Ball are already there. And I think, Kacey, we can just sort of assume that Truly takes a slightly different route and makes a cell phone call and joins them there as well.
Yeah.
Mew and 8-Ball, Dame Ekarine, gives the same sort of hearty greeting. She keeps taking her gauntlet on and off. She does, she wears it most of the time, but when she's greeting someone, she does take it off so that she can give you a hearty forearm shake. Surprisingly strong for someone with the relative build of a human-sized squirrel. Not exactly noted for their really beefy arms, but
I'm gonna go out on a limb and guess that we have probably some like probably dealings with Fey states or state-esque things like the Palatinate are much more contractual than necessarily dealings with other groups. So 8-Ball has been really going through whatever paperwork we have.
Yeah, so it's true that fairies especially like contracts and treaties and anything that you can embellish or make an illuminated manuscript out of is kind of their jam. There is an existing document, which is a treaty of eternal friendship between the benighted city of Salem and the Palatinate of Wyrms. It's quite florid, and I think it probably stretches out to 3 single-spaced pages if you're trying to read through all of it, but it doesn't have a lot of content to it. It has a lot of nice things about both groups and about how they care deeply for each other and yada, yada, yada. But in terms of formalized commitments, there's really nothing meaningful there.
And for the record, Kelly, I just want to confirm, looking at the map here, it is centered on Worcester, and presumably Worcester is its main hub, main city of this area, main seat of power. There we go. Seat of power.
Yeah, absolutely.
I will say that 8-Ball has also been going through the computers and the cabinets just to see if there are ancillary documents and agreements, and all that stuff is laid out, because she got a bit ahead of it, but is still sort of catching up on the concepts.
Sure. Yeah, she's done her research in advance here, and I think you can find things like minutes from all the previous meetings. Dame Ekarine has been the emissary before, but definitely not always and not forever. And other people from the Palatinate have been sent before. She's probably actually new in the last maybe 5 years. Or no, that doesn't make sense. New in the last. This is probably her second time, because it's a 7-year cycle. So this is probably her second time coming as the emissary on behalf of the Palatinate. You can find minutes. You can find accounts of what they ate for the diplomatic luncheon and that kind of stuff. But again, the overall takeaway here is big on flowery words and low on specific commitments.
Cool. So while this meeting has been going on, Amal has been kind of discreetly off to the side, taking notes, greeting when prompted. Mew greeted very politely, but then has spent the rest of this meeting just sort of stalking around the two interlopers, completely fascinated. He does not know what to make of these two. He is aware that they have this history of adhering to law, I think, and respects them for that, but has also heard stories of their chaotic nature. Also, this is a big ass squirrel, and he is fighting some kind of primal urges to chase, and also some primal urges to flee from this dragon.
Well, the dragon's not inside; the dragon's outside.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, the dragon stays outside. The dragon's too big to enter the building, at least without doing something elaborate and magical to let it. It would fit in the Great Hall, but it's too big to get through any of the entrances.
Okay, we better watch out for any parking tickets that show up then.
She's got a diplomatic parking pass.
Okay.
Oh, right. Yeah, you can park wherever you want. Okay. So she takes whatever seat she's pointed towards and sits down and says, "Well, so I've done one of these before. It was a pretty good time. We had some nice tea. There were some sandwiches involved, as I recall. What do you have planned for me this time?"
Kelly, can I
Yep.
Can I just say that due to her like military and martial background, by now and between these meetings, Mother McCree has drawn up a relatively rudimentary but relatively accurate map that is somewhat of a version of what you've made here. That is, I mean, not total, but like is the general New England area, specifically with the updated property of the Bacchus Blood Vineyards.
Yep.
And as soon as she starts like expecting all of this, Mother McCree will reach into her pocket and pull out a very wrinkled piece of paper and slam it down in front of her and point directly at the Blood Vineyards and their border between them and the Palatinate of Wyrms territory.
Yeah, so we it is a pleasure to meet you. We have done 0 of these before, and I think this one is going to be a bit exceptional, even by whatever standards we may have had before. As my associate was so helpful as to point out, we have kind of a standing threat that is taking a bit of precedence over our normal relationships at the moment.
Yes, she looks over and fires the map and says, "This this fellow Bacchus has gotten hungry of late."
Yeah, he's yeah.
He killed our mayor and many of our upper governments. He will do the same to you if you are not careful.
Well, may have killed. Unconfirmed.
Right, she sort of perks up and then says, "Is the mayor deceased?"
And the mayor is
Only one of us. Maybe 2.
okay, yeah, that's fair. But in terms of we're technically the acting mayor. In terms of the technical mayor, he is unaccounted for, as are several other of our officials who went down to attempt to deal with the problem. So there's a good chance that, yeah, he might be deceased.
I think it is safe to assume the worst, if not the second worst.
I'm not sure necessarily that him being dead would be the worst. That's not a judgment on him. That is a statement that there may be possibilities that are more dire than simple execution in this current situation, which again is why we are having these meetings with sort of an extra sense of urgency involved.
Make no mistake, I would shed no tears either way.
Can you... Okay, I'm leaving the physiology aside for now. Yes, so it sounds like y'all already have some understanding of the Bacchus situation.
I know that he has expanded his territory rather significantly, as this map quite accurately represents. Very nice map. As this map quite accurately represents, we now share a border with the territory which he claims. It's been some time since the Palatinate had any active kindred presence on its immediate borders.
Have you had any interactions with abominations?
She looks very concerned at this.
Yeah,
and says,
Mother McCree gets right into her face and says, "You're not just dealing with a kindred there, Missy."
That would if he has done this, that's quite a serious transgression for the law among his kind. And she points to Jack and yours.
Oh yes, it's I don't think there's a word better for it than abomination.
Yeah, it's bad shit.
Well, we have been batting around the term chimera.
I thought that was something else.
Have we been battering it around?
Maybe some of
Mew
us
has-
have been battering around it. But
Mew has
all
been
in character.
at
All
every
in character.
opportunity trying to push this term chimera on everybody, as this is what we should be calling it. He doesn't refer to it as anything else.
But that's already like two other things.
I don't agree with the other two mayors in a lot of things, but I believe the term abomination is appropriate.
I suppose.
If Becurius and his people are willing to transgress such a ancient and severe taboo, then he may be more than just a petty local warlord who knocked over a couple of ill-prepared werewolf packs. No offense intended.
No, none taken. They were ill prepared.
Kelly, I'm sorry, the name of the previous the pack leader who was deposed
The person who was running the pack
in Springfield.
That was in Springfield. That was another kindred. What did we? say?
Oh, sorry. Okay, yeah, but still, it's the same.
Richard Cumberland was
Right.
the Prince of Springfield. What?
So Mother McCree will say to her, and needless to say, any agreements you had with the previous leader, Mr. Cumberland, are no longer accurate or are now voided.
Well, I understand that there's some sort of additional diplomatic meeting happening in Springfield now as well. A change of administration. There has to be some conversation about how the two communities will relate going forward. But if this is the circumstance, I can't imagine that meeting is going to go well at all. No, this is not good. Entirely not good.
Is it fair to say that meeting has not taken place yet?
The rider left the same time that I did, so it's happening as we speak.
Your writer is already dead.
She looks concerned, and she sort of leans back in her chair, and she's taken both of her gauntlets off now, and they're sitting in her lap, and she thinks for a moment and sort of absentmindedly reaches out and clasps the hand of the person who's sitting nearest to her, who happens to be Truly. Well, it seems to me, and I hope that you will seriously consider what I'm about to say. It seems to me that we have always been friends, the Palatinate and the city of Salem. We have a long-standing history of deep, heartfelt accord, and now in these dire times, nothing could be more important than that we hew to our long-standing tradition of bosom friendship. She looks very, concerned and hoping, like searching the faces of the other people in the room, looking for agreement.
I think Mew is picking up some thinly veiled scared shitless. Is that accurate?
I would emphasize concern.
Okay.
Fear reads differently, right? Mew knows what fear looks like pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
And this is more like, you crest the hill and there's 10 times more troops on the battlefield than you thought there were before, right? And if you're a green recruit, you probably run. But if you're a veteran, it's like, all right, this is going to be a lot harder than I thought it was going to be.
Okay.
Right? And that she's a veteran. That's very clear in her bearing.
We are looking to strengthen established alliances so that we can form a united front in dealing with Becurius, because I think if we aren't proactive, he is going to continue to expand his borders, and none of us are going to like where that goes.
She nods gravely and says, I have brought our copy of the great and everlasting statement of eternal friendship with me. I assume that it matches to yours. sort of gestures, if you have it with you, you can sort of compare the two agreements. They should be the same document. It's just sort of a formality of making sure you're both on the same page.
And I have ours out anyway, so.
Okay. Yeah. So she sort of lays it down next to it. And they're matching documents, right? They're intentionally the same, right? They're illuminated in the same place. And actually, when they're placed on the table next to each other, the different illuminated, like highlighted bits that are in the text kind of glow in the same pattern with each other. It's sort of just a way of it's like showing you have the same credential to each other, right? Okay, so we're on the same page, right? So given the deep dangers of this moment, I believe that that the Palatinate would be only too happy to reform our agreement, to deepen it, to build an even stronger foundation to the timeless understanding between our two peoples and communities. Surely, under such grave circumstances as this, an attack on one must be considered an attack on all, and the mutual defense of our two realms should be seen as truly one good. Would this be something that your community would be open to?
Absolutely.
And I think in addition, we all have to be keeping in mind our other neighbors and not considering this as like a unilateral thing. So I think it would be good for all of us to be taking meetings with each other, particularly have some concerns about the attention of Precarious to move towards, say, the Quabbin horror or something along those lines. So I think we all have to be thinking as a group and as a region.
What kind of martial or otherwise practical aids can the Palatinate offer?
At this Dame Ecorine smirks, not in a rude way, but in a way of like, you just asked my favorite subject in the world kind of way, right?
An open invite to show off. Why, yes, please.
We can pledge easily 70 cold iron swords and enough dragons to carry them to war.
8-Ball sort of glances around the group, not entirely sure whether that's significant or not, given the nature of reality.
Yeah. What does Mew and or Amal know about cold iron or dragons and their practical applications?
The main thing that anybody with a mystical background is going to know about cold iron is that it's really bad for fairies, right? It's the thing you have if you want to fuck up a fairy.
Mm-hmm.
And in terms of dragons, probably what a human living in the real world knows about dragons. Dragons are not a big thing, right? They're not like a okay, kind of what a vampire is in this setting because there's a million vampires running around. Dragons are hella obscure, and living this close to the Palatinate, you would have you'd be aware of the idea that there's some fairy dragons over there, and probably, for instance, Truly has visited the Palatinate before, so maybe she'd seen one before.
Mm-hmm.
But Jeff, this was probably your first time. It was probably Jack's first time seeing a dragon. Period. Right?
Yeah, and when
it was pretty impressive.
When 8-Ball looks over, Jack gives her a thumbs up and a nod.
She said 70?
70.
Okay. Given
She's talking your language.
Yeah, I was going to say, given Mother McCree's martial knowledge, just like, I guess she's not really seen a dragon, so she doesn't know how big of a threat this is. But that's like saying we have, that's like
150 dudes.
Well, score is 20.
No, I'm saying like Salem has like 150 dudes, right? Like we don't have that many either, right? That's
right. So they're saying
how many people could you put in the field from Salem?
Right.
Oh God.
Yeah, debatable. How many people can you get to turn out for the muster? But that's certainly, it's less than the supernatural population of Salem by a substantial amount. But if you're saying I can give you 60 credible threats and they're all riding dragons, that's not nothing.
60 more dragons than we had before.
I mean, I guess the question is it? Or when it comes to the actual field, is that still 0 dragons?
That was going through my head, but I don't know any better. So,
Like, do they go away if you clap?
How ephemeral are these dragons?
But also, I mean, we're also talking about, and Mother McCrew will say this. That's a number. She'll say that to her. I mean, she's going to be kind of condescending because, like, she just tried to brag about this, and I'm like, that's a number. You are aware we're talking about a gentleman who's now making werewolf vampire hybrids at a number and a rate we do not know.
She leans over, same kind of gentle presence as before, and she doesn't pat Mother McCree, but she kind of pats the air near Mother McCree, like she would if they were just a little bit on slightly more intimate terms, and says, "Dragons breathe fire." Trying to be, helpful.
Jack looks at Mother McCree and gives her a thumbs up and a nod.
Mother McCree just, this isn't a threatening gesture. This is just an active thing she's doing.
Oh, okay.
She goes from using her walking stick as a walking stick, pulls it up on her lap, cocks it, unloads a bullet, and just kind of like cleans part of it.
Dame Ekarine sort of straightens up and like adjusts her neck a little bit. And there's a visible process of recategorizing a person in the room from like honored elder, maybe a little bit too deep in her dotage, into fellow soldier. Mm-hmm. That's sort of like it's a big adjustment. You can watch it happen on her squirrel face. So, and as for Salem, what manner of hardened troops can you send to the battlefield should we need to call upon you for aid? This shared border between our dominions and those of Bacurius is growing more troubling by the moment, even as I sit here.
8-Ball looks at Jack.
Well, we've got a pack, pretty good one. Then there's the foxgloves, and they're pretty badass. Then there's
the Sistren of the Bitter Well.
Oh, the Sistren. Yeah, no, they're pretty good. There's like, 5 of them?
There are the Good Shepherds, who are practiced at the art of monster hunting and well-equipped.
They're a pretty good diverse group, too.
Aye, we've got some of the best bureaucrats you'll ever see. She says, is like loading a bullet into the chamber and like then immediately locking it down like a walking stick again.
I did. How many Good Shepherds are there these days?
7.
I think there's like 3 or 4 of them, right?
Yeah. So as you can see, we have a diverse and frequently difficult to categorize array of martial resources, as well as a fairly wide and eclectic citizenry that can be mustered in different ways.
We collectively are quite adept at the more subtle arts of war, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Well, subtle or vulgar, call your banners, friends. We must be ready if this villain is to be met in the field.
Yes.
Of springs.
Yeah, part of that is also that we are working on gauging his own resources and the nature of such. And now that we know that you're aware, probably also sharing information about all of that will be essential to the and there's a pause and some question marks, war effort. 8-Ball has never expected to use that phrase in a serious way before.
I can tell you this, the son of a bitch has got a better axe to grind with us than you. So that's a notch in your favor.
True, good woman. But as you've so helpfully noted on this excellent map of yours, we are rather in between you and him.
At this, Mother McCree will gravely say, "Aye."
Yeah, I wonder if maybe we want to move some of the shepherds out there to do some reconnaissance sooner rather than later.
Consider it done.
When you say out there, what do you mean?
Into the Palatinate.
Oh.
And from there, at their discretion, into Bacurius's territory to see what's up.
Gotcha. So procedurally, what that will entail is going and having some kind of a conversation with the mistress of the crook, Gwendolyn Foxglove, about repositioning some of the shepherds, assigning them outside of the boundaries of Salem, which is not something they normally do, but is something that could happen if under exigent circumstances.
These are exigent as hell.
Yeah, 8-Ball puts that on the to-do list on her phone.
All right. Anything else we want to say before we close out this meeting?
Sorry about the sandwiches.
It's quite understandable. In times as grave as these, there's not always the opportunity to prepare a sumptuous feast, even for an honored guest. Sometimes these things can't be helped. But your proposal, Madam 8-Ball, of a new agreement of martial friendship, mutual aid in times of existential threat, and one that is open-ended, so that other of the various factions in our vicinity might seek to join our alliance as well. I believe that I can definitely convince the Council of Wyrms to agree to this. So, are we in agreement? Is this how we move forward?
I believe so.
Sounds good to me.
Then here is to a most sumptuous feast at the end of this. I hope you will join us in All Hallows Hall to dine on the blood of our enemies.
We can order some pizza if you want.
Pizza will do quite nicely.
Rad.
Jack knows the place.
She stands up and begins to refit her gauntlets and says, my deepest regrets then that I cannot stay longer, but it seems to me that time is of the essence in this matter. She turns to each member of the committee and greets them again in turn. Another handshake, another paw shake for Mew. This time she gives a sort of a heartier, more of a soldier's greeting to Mother McCree. Her estimation there having changed. A much tighter embrace for both Jack and Truly. And in each case, she leans in and whispers in each of their ears respectively, "Until we meet again." Also, like right in front of each other. No shame about it at all. And I think with that, she's going to get on her dragon and go home. She's got work to do.
The dragon has like about a dozen paper bags around, mostly torn open.
It's probably still hungry.
Right. The dragon is, finishing chewing its last double cheeseburger, and it gives out a low belch with a puff of plume of fire coming after it as she saddles up and flies off into the setting sun.
Look at that! Mother McCree nudges Mew. It can breathe fire.
Yes, good.
Man, I should get me a dragon.
8-Ball sort of leans over to Truly. So, is that anything? The whole, is dragons anything?
I mean, they're dragons. I mean, you mean like, would a person see them, or what's the question here?
Yeah, would a person be murdered by them, I think is really the question.
I would think so. They might not know what they were murdered by, but, we would.
Kelly, is it the because it did belch fire, is it like mundane fire?
Oh, well, it's the whole deal is the dragon's been hanging out in the Umbra this whole time, right? And so what it belched was certainly dangerous in the context of the Umbra. Probably actually more dangerous than mundane fire.
Okay.
If you want to be specific about like a super high temperature, highly destructive. This creature is definitely dangerous in the context of the Umbra. The question is, would it have any value at all outside of the Umbra?
That is basically all I need to do.
And that would be the true shame, that a mortal wouldn't know the majesty that murdered it. They should know.
Yes, that would be the true shame if you were murdered by a dragon.
Yes.
I'm not sure this is the issue. I'm pretty sure the issue at this point is not about the mortals.
Oh, I'm sure we could get a couple of those guys to chase us into the Umbra. I don't think that'd be too hard.
I mean, he does have an army of werewolves, so...
He had one at least. Now he may have an army of abominations.
I'm not sure I mean, my understanding is, from one limited understanding I have, that not only is it like it's a thing you shouldn't do, but it's also a thing that doesn't tend to go well when you try. So it might... I'm skeptical that the number of werewolves he has equals like just bite them and they all become abominations. You might lose some in the process.
I just can't imagine any werewolf abiding by that. So, yeah, that'd surprise me.
Jackie boy, in my day, I've come to a place where nothing surprises me, especially agreeing to abominable things.
Yeah, I'm kind of with McCree on this one. That's it this week for The Chimera. Our theme music this season is Down Among the Dead Men, performed by Adrienne Howard, Emily Peterson, and Dirk I. Tiede. For information on other music used in this episode, check the show notes. You can support The Chimera by going to patreon.com/chimerapod. Patrons at any amount get access to behind-the-scenes setting and system info, art polls, and exclusive side games and one-shots. You can also find us online at thechimera.space or on Twitter and Facebook at ChimeraPod. We'll be back in 2 weeks with a new episode, so until then, thanks for listening. Very quickly for Braden, we are receiving the emissary from the Palatinate of Wyrms, who is a human-sized bisexual squirrel knight.
Cool.
Who just rode in on a dragon.
Also cool.